Testing, testing, penis. Jesus. Anyway, hello gamers, I'm Munchie, and this is my process, or rather, my layers, because I totally forgot to record my process as I was painting. So instead, we're going to take my layers one by one and see what they do, and tell you a few little details about each of them. I added the layers here on the side, on the right side, and OBS so you can see everything better, hopefully. And so you can see that I have here a grid, which, you know, shows me the perspective a bit in case I want to draw a background. This is extremely helpful, going with the grid, with the squares all the way to the horizon line. I don't have it drawn here, but I didn't really need it anyway. And on top we have the sketch itself. A few details. I use the marker and Psy because it's the best tool ever. You can see the settings here. It's a block. Obviously, I find that the block shape is way more satisfying to see in brush strokes over a plain circle. I like the texture that it gives. Like, around here it just feels way more interesting to look at. Then I will generally clean up my sketch a bit and use it as the line work, because fuck doing line art. It feels like it takes a ridiculous amount of time only for you to then erase your sketch and see that the bare bone line work kinda looks underwhelming. So I just stopped doing line art. I just clean out my sketch and roll with it. So what I'm gonna do next, after this step, is add the colors in this particular illustration. I only have skin colors, not much going on. Bunchy's hair is technically, you know, the dark color with the clothing and everything. And since there's quite a big contrast between the sketch itself and the skin, I generally will add a clipping layer on top. As you can see from the red bar here, it's clipped onto the sketch layer. And when I make it visible again, you can see that it has these nice gradients. I usually make them warm colors, since that just seems more natural. Next up, I will add kind of like blushing. I love blushing. Basically just on top of the sketch layer. Again with the marker. All of this is done with the marker. I will go pick, you know, like a red, you know, deep red, something like that. Go on top like this. Not that hard, but something like that. Take the water brush tool. Again, if you want, check out the settings here. It's a soft brush. I will blend it in. You can add textures to it. I have currently an aquarella texture to it, and makes things look nice and interesting later on. That's it about the blush layers. I usually go over the shoulders, cheeks, nose, lips, ears, butt, spine, just whichever area you feel like it needs a bit of embellishment. Tips of the fingers, wrists, elbows can also work. But now, as you can see, we're losing a little bit of the sketch, right? You want some areas to show up more. So what I'm gonna do sometimes is add another layer on top, which has more hard lines, more details, bringing out the eyes, adding some hatching, adding some more form to what already exists, and you can already see it pops out more. Also on this layer I have like what I did later, like on the background, some grass and stuff. But we'll get there. For now, sometimes you might not like, because again, you create the harsher contrast between the lines that you just added and the sketch and the colors. And in this case, you again want to clip a layer on top and again blend it in a little bit. It's not a huge difference, but if I unclip it, you'll be able to see that we actually got a bunch of colors here. They're pretty dark, but they do their jobs well. Color theory, I don't fucking know. Okay. At this point, I would get to taking care of the background. I started with the sky here, added a nice little blue and a green. As you can see, again, this is again done with the marker. What I will do is pick a normal green. This is a more color theory stuff. I will pick a green and just lightly with, you know, the not pressing too hard, just add, you know, this green. Obviously, it's going to blend in with the base color that you have in the background. However, what this does, it gives you a nice, more neutral color that you can use, so the green doesn't make your eyes bleed. And now we color picked the green that we had just, you know, like here we color picked this. And this green that we have color picked now is going to be a way better match. Let me just, there we go. So that's how I get my colors for the background usually. I added just these two blocks here based on this grid that I had on the ground. We can remove the grid at this point. Goodbye grid. And after that is just, you know, more background details. Added like a nice railing. Oh, here's a part that I like. Here's something I can expand upon. So as you can see, we have these kind of outlines here. They still show up as I do this. Why this happens is because I enabled this effect up here called water fringe. Basically what it's going to do is add an outline to any shape, any line that you draw. And I like using this in background details, in shading, you'll see later on. For now, I've just used it on these grassy patches. And it's very nice because it also combines with pressure and the brush that you use. So for example, you know, I have the marker here. I know I'm gonna pick this random blue and go. This is me pressing very lightly, but as you can see, like, if I start pressing harder, it's going to generate another outline. However, if I keep the pressure the same, you're not going to see the outline as much. But it's still going to have this nice texture to it that I encourage you to use. Outlines on anything, very nice. Okay, let's continue. More details on the ground here again with the fringe, the water fringe. You can mess around with the intensity and the thickness of the outline that you want. Then I added a bit of a gradient here to add more visual interest, more colors. Another gradient to the sky. Again, feel free to mess with the modes and the opacities. A lot of my process is just trial and error and experimenting with different things. And then we add a multiply layer. Usually, I learned this from my boyfriend, Goblin King, that you usually won't go wrong if you go on a multiply layer. Pick like a light, cold blue like this and just draw whatever. It's going to look nice on multiply as a shadow. It works every time. And as you can see, I added quite a bunch of details. Again, I added the water fringe on it. It doesn't show up here because I merged it, but quite a bunch of details just from the multiply layer alone, like the textures on these stalls, you know, following the objects, trying to keep in mind where your light source is, all that stuff. Little tiny clouds here, again with the fringe. Like I said, fringe is my best friend. Shine layer. The shine layer is again one of my favorite layer modes. It just works with anything, any color you want. Usually you want to go with a full saturation color, and if it's too saturated, like, I don't know, we go like this, it doesn't necessarily look like it's light. You might want to, tone it down a bit, or you might want to pick a color that is less saturated for it. Again, you have to mess around with it. And then that is it with the background mostly. Now what I am going to do is work on how the light that I have in my mind with the light source and stuff is going to affect the shadows on the characters, again, another multiply layer. Though here, what I did, let me just... So it's on multiply, it's not very visible because it blends in. But if I turn it to normal, you can see that actually I used a whole gradient of colors. Basically what I did is I clipped a layer to another layer, created a gradient, set it on multiply, and started erasing away and blending in until I got this nice effect. And then turn it back to multiply, and it looks great. Wonderful. After you got your multiply, your shadows done, after you're happy with your shadows, you're gonna want to add, shines to bring out some, more details, more planes, define more shapes. So that's what I did here. I think I picked the skin color itself, or maybe a brighter red. It's more visible here, the color that it is. I suggest using fringes on shine layers as well because it looks quite pretty. The outline is gonna be more colorful and bright, which is, again, adds more texture. Very nice to look at. Another layer of shine, except this one is a yellow, I believe. Again, a bit harsher. I use them mostly for the clothing, for the, latexy look. Next up, I have these outlines that kind of defy any law of physics and color and light refraction, but I feel they are a good hack to use because you can, again, bring out more details, like, the shines in the eyes, make the butt stand out a bit from the hair in this area, make the the arm here stand out from the butt in this area, or from the hip, because they are three-dimensionally on different distances, so you need to kind of show that somehow, even if it's visual hacks. And then last step, what I do here is some super cool hacks, how to make everything look like color theory. As you can see, we have a screen layer here on 64%. I am just going to turn it on, and as you can see, it makes literally everything makes more vibrant, a bit more unified, if that makes sense. Now let me just turn that to normal so you can see the colors better, and 100%. So what I did here was, I was thinking, the sun, we got some warm light going on. I'm gonna place it here so that it shows that this area is warmer because that's where the sun is, while this area is going to be more cold because that's where the shadows are mostly pointed towards. So this normally is placed on the screen layer. You can try other layers, of course. Obviously, it's gonna work just fine. But I noticed that with the screen layer, it's gonna work just fine. Again, you might want to mess with the opacity, with the saturation of the colors, with how dark they are or how bright they are. I think I had mine at like, I don't know, 64%, something like that. Next up, more shine. Ambiental shine this time. This one, honestly, we could make do without it, but I kind of like it on, even though it's like very, very, 13%. It's barely visible. If we were to turn it up, yeah, that's pretty blinding. I don't know. For some people, you might enjoy that. I personally like it a bit more low key here. This one again, it's an orange. Just more implying, trying to imply warmth, trying to give a feeling of warmth here. And then this layer, which I cannot see much of, is yes. So sometimes, the eyes kind of get lost in here. Like obviously, I want the face, the eyes to be more the where your gaze goes to. I'm not composition savvy, let's just say that much. I'm not great at composition. I know the theory, I just don't bother to apply it. So what I did here is, again, create another layer where, again, you bring in some strong contrast with, like, the black, and, again, you bring out some details, because before they were, like, kind of brown, kind of blending in with the other lines, and then, again, we have the black with some white, the highlights, the cheek a little bit, the lashes, the eyeball. And then, finally, bring out another layer of lines to create more contrast, to create more depth, to separate things from each other more, to, yeah, ideally, you want to have a good, I guess, gradient. You want to have good values. I don't necessarily keep a lookout for my values, but what I am going to do is usually, I don't know, let's open this one, which is like the finished piece, right? And I am going to go to hue and saturation, turn the saturation all the way down, and check my values. Check if I have a good portion of, like, let me just color pick here real quick. The brightest is, pure white. We have a bunch of pure white here. It's all good, all nice. We have a bunch of grays, and we also have a bunch of almost darks. It's not ideal. This is not how you want to ration your values ideally, but it's generally a good idea to have a good grasp on values. Have dark values, have brighter values, have good midtones. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about my process right now. What I also like to do at the very end, is I will often take things into Photoscape or Photoshop and add just, noise, some blur, Gaussian blur in certain places, sharp in certain places, but that's all just post-editing. Boosting the saturation a bit to make the colors pop more. But generally, this is the info that I would share with anyone that is interested in getting their art to look like nice, colorful, but also not making your eyes bleed with too much saturation, or be boring if it doesn't have enough saturation, or I don't know, everyone has different goals. I just hope that something in this long video is useful to you, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate that people were actually interested in finding out how I do things. So okay, bye, thanks, bye.